Peace to the planet Earth. You know what it is. Bishop Chronicles, chilling, and police terror. It's a hashtag. I'm chilling today with somebody I've known for a while, but we don't get to kick it like we should kick it. And he is honestly one of the most inspiring rappers that I've come across in the last 20 years. I would say that, like, inspiring. One of the things that happened recently, I was talking to some kids and I said, hey, what y'all want to listen to? And they was like, this was years ago. And he was like, oh, we want to listen to Fetty Wap and we want to listen to blah. And all this stuff that I didn't want to play in class because we were teaching chess. And I said, do any of you have a song that inspires you that you would like to hear? And no one said a word. And that's when I knew hip hop had actually changed. Because hip hop would always, you know, I'm a dope man. Yeah, boy, wear corduroy. That was always part of the vibe. But there was also this knowledge vibe and aspire and, you know, stay strong and weather the storm and you can do it. And none of these kids, these were sixth graders, but you know what I mean? This was about 6 years ago and these were sixth graders, but this was their reality. You know what I'm saying? I had to go back and think back to the first song that I knew you for. And it was Only Life I Know. Only Life I Know was my introduction to you as an artist. And I don't think I've ever even told you that, but it is. And there's a very short list of rap songs that can bring me to tears. That is one of them. That's when I know that an artist is actually dope. If I could get this slow trembling thing over here.
Yeah, the lip quiver.
He's spitting. That's real talk. You know what I'm saying?
If you breathe in and
yeah. Yo, you crying, Dees? Dees don't cry. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not crying. You're crying.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no crying in chess.
Exactly. So, you know, I just wanted to say, like, I appreciate you as an artist for being a source of inspiration for a lot of these years. And I just wanted to open with thank you.
Man, that means a lot coming from you because you are a legend, you know, especially for folks that know real hip hop in the West and in Cali and in the Bay. I know you know, so that means a lot coming from you.
Thank you, man. No, thank you. And so I just really kind of wanted to, and, you know, full disclosure for anybody who's watching, me and him ain't talked in a long time. So this is about to be an interview / friend catch up. Okay.
Yeah.
May get weird.
Be weird. That's what we're here for, man.
You know, a few episodes back, I did a thing called Is Hip Hop Anti-Cop? And the whole thing was looking at all of the different anti-cop songs and then looking at all of the injustice that Black people have been enduring and then saying, hey, look, you know, what they're saying is a fair, you know what I'm saying? It's a fairly fair critique. And when I did that, people were like, yo, you can't make a podcast like that, blah, blah. And that was like 3 weeks before George Floyd. So then when George Floyd happens now, and I made a Spotify list called anti-cop hip hop so that people could look at, you know, whether it's NWA or, you know what I mean? Whoever, right? Boom, 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 boom. So then once George Floyd happened, everybody's like, yo, man, you want some prophecy, boy. You know what I'm saying? You be knowing. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just Black in America. It's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not.
Yeah. And to be a hip hop head, no, you know that hip hop has always given voice to that. Even before After Police, that was just the first anthem.
Real.
I mean, there's stuff before that.
So I just wanted to catch up with you and see, like, how has, you know, what has it been like for you since George Floyd, being from where you're from?
Yeah, so I'm broadcasting from South Minneapolis. When I first moved to Minneapolis, I lived in North Minneapolis, which was predominantly a historically Black neighborhood. You know, that's almost entirely Black. It's starting to get gentrified a little bit now, but for the most part, it's a Black neighborhood. And, you know, it's interesting because that's a really industrial part of the city. There's only there's one highway that goes through that part, and there's only 2 ways to get on and off the highway. It's really isolated. Very industrial, like I said. Minnesota is known for a lot of lakes, but there's no lakes on the north side. The lakes are on the south side.
Okay.
And so, you know, when I moved to Minneapolis, I was 14, turning 15, and I lived on the north side for, you know, 10 plus years. my most formative years. That's where I became Muslim. That's where I was when I wrote my first album, all that kind of stuff. And then my wife, I met my wife in New York. My wife is from the Bronx.
Okay. Boogie down.
So, yeah. And so when she came to Minnesota, she was like, no. Like, I did not come from the Bronx to the middle of nowhere to move from one hood to another hood. Like, when I thought this was going to be a step up. And I mean,
what is happening?
North side is cool. Like, it's nice. Like, it's not, it's not. But I mean, there's gunshots and there's all of that kind of stuff. And so South Minneapolis is more diverse economically, racially. Atmosphere is from South Minneapolis. That's why I didn't really meet them till later. People think of African and white, but both of them, their dad, so their moms are white, both Slug and Ant. Their dads are black, white, and native.
Interesting.
So if you look at their dads, you're seeing like obviously black men. Like Anthony's dad is Jerome Davis, like Ant from Atmosphere. His name is Anthony Jerome Davis, and his dad is Jerome Davis. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Both of it. It's funny because I remember Evidence didn't believe me when I was first telling him that. I was like, yo.
He was like, no, but.
He was like, no, they're white. And it's funny because people always think that Ev is like Puerto Rican or Mexican or something.
Right.
And and I was like, he was like, no, they're just, But then he was like, yo, Slug's dad looks like Planet Asia.
That's so deep.
Yeah, man. And so, but I mean, that's really common for South Minneapolis, black, white, native. You might pass for white.
Right.
So Slug has two biological brothers. One of them looks white. He actually looks like Alec Baldwin. And then he has another brother that looks black. And Slug kind of like in the middle.
That's crazy.
But, so South Minneapolis is really diverse, and that's where we live now. We lived here for the last 10 years. We live right now we live in like a really like working class neighborhood. So we're like a mile from where George Floyd was killed. His fiance, shout out to Courtney. His fiance is an epic Brother Ali fan. Like I've heard of her. She's like a legendary fan.
Wow.
Her and her kids. So, and I've heard about her for years. Like people would be like, the lady that runs my coffee shop is the biggest Brother Ali fan on earth. I've heard about this woman, and we've met a couple times, but I wasn't really clear on like that's who that is. Right. But she was engaged to Floyd. And so I saw somebody, like a journalist, like posted a picture of her and the kids out protesting, and they were all wearing my shirts. And I was like, yo, what's up with that? And then people were like, somebody hit me up and was like, that's her. Like that's Right. So and when the city was burning, man, like we were out at night protecting our homes. In North Minneapolis, the black neighborhood, there was like the actual people protesting. Then you had people destroying things, and that's really unclear. There definitely were agent provocateurs in full effect, like there always are. The person that started the destruction, it really appeared like there's video of him. He's a white man dressed in all black, and he had a black umbrella. He gets out of his car. He walks up he has a hammer, and he's breaking the windows at AutoZone. And the people are filming him like, bro, what are you doing? And this is like day 2 of the protest. He gets back in his car and he leaves. And then this woman on Facebook that lives in this area in the suburbs was like, yo, that's my ex-boyfriend. He's a cop.
I saw that.
Yeah. And so that was going on. But then once the burning started, then people started coming from out of town to take advantage of it. So in North Minneapolis,
what's sad, bro.
That
happened in St. Louis too.
Yeah. In Ferguson, yeah. Yeah. And it's happened over and over again, man. So yeah, on the north side of town, which is black, there were white supremacist groups out there with guns threatening people. On this side of town that's mixed and working class, it was anarchists. and they were
Dude, the
stealing people's
anarchists
cars.
been hijacking
Yo.
nonviolent movements since the 90s. Do you know? I stopped doing public speaking because of them. I would go speak for Mumia. I would go speak for political prisoners, and these dudes would show up, start breaking stuff. And I was like, you know what? I don't want my name attached to the reason why someone got hit in the face with a rubber bullet, you know what I mean? So I was like, I'm done. And I stopped public speaking for a really long time. And their disruption and hijacking of our nonviolence has been a big problem.
And the Bay has been hip to that. Like, you know that I spent 4 years off and on in the Bay.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I was in West Oakland for a while, and then I was in Fremont for a while.
In Fremont.
And all the organizers I know out there, they're all super hip to that.
Dude, it's such a problem. It's such a problem. And I knew it was going to be a problem this time, and I wasn't shocked, you know. And it's very troubling, man. It's very troubling.
They're hella organized, though.
Yes.
Like they have protocols that they follow. Like basically they steal vehicles. So like, you know, I have 4 kids, so we have a minivan. You know, the Muslim mom mobile. You know
right.
So like
David, pull up, open the door, zook.
You know, every mosque got a gang of minivans, and every family got 7, 8. Like if I had to have 4 kids just so that Uber drivers would believe I'm actually Muslim. You know what I'm saying? But that's what they're stealing. So like they steal vehicles that can carry a lot of people. They rip off the license plates. They cover the like side windows of like vans or trucks they have like tarps and like paper that they put up in the window so you can't see who's inside. And if you confront them, they're not violent on the individual level. So like if you confront them, they'd run away. If the police pull them over, they all break out. They scatter.
Right.
And their thing is to just destroy.
Right.
Like they want to burn down. They tried to burn down the library in our neighborhood. They were trying to burn down like individual homes.
For the record, anybody burning books is a demon. Like I'm afraid of book burning people. I think that's one of the most dangerous things in the history of man's actions is to burn books, man. If you're trying to burn a library, that's like a sin against centuries of people.
Yeah, I just realized the brother Pigeon John, you know Pigeon John?
Yeah.
Your voice and his voice are a similar register. I just noticed that.
I never really thought about that, but I'm gonna have to reflect on. I'm gonna go pull some up.
It's just like certain points, like
tones.
I'm legally blind. I'm partially blind.
Right.
So I relate to people mostly by voices, and there's like certain
inflections.
Yeah, that are like really similar, and that's a compliment. His voice is dope.
yeah.
He's an amazing dude, man. But yeah, it's a trip. Like I know some anarchists. I've known anarchists in my life, like just being in the movement, and like I've known some of them. I understand where they're coming from. You know, I get it. I don't agree with a lot of what they're on. And one of the things that was really troubling, man, is like, okay, if the anarchists are burning down all the Wells Fargo banks or something, like, okay, I'm not mad at that. But like, burning down
a grocery store.
Yeah, grocery stores and like the library, like, man.
So now grandma can't go get the milk. You feel me?
Or the libraries or people's homes. Like they were stashing like kerosene and things like that in bottles behind people's houses. We had to like go and like sweep and clean our alleys every day and like checking our garages and checking our,
because there was that much activity.
It was real, man. And then you go out at night and in the morning, like we would get up for Fajr time and go outside and it's
Fajr's morning prayer for the Muslims.
Yeah, before.
So it's usually dark.
It's usually like, it's like it's just the sun hasn't risen yet, but it's like there's sunrise and then dawn. So it's dawn. It's not sunrise yet. You go outside and it's like you can just smell ash and tear gas and smoke and like because all that burning stuff was really close to us. Right. So it was very visceral and real and like, and then the service, the funeral for George Floyd happened, and his fiance invited me, and we went over there, and she was like, yo, I'm sorry, I can barely get in. Like all the women who had like lost. So Philando Castile was here a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's so
So she was like, yo, I was sitting in the back. This is his fiance. She was like, Ali, I'm sitting in the back with Philando Castile's mom and wife. And like, there's just like every city, there's like a bunch of young black men unarmed that have been killed by police. Jamar Clark, like we could go on and on and on with these names. Franklin, Terrence Franklin, Jamar Clark, like all these names, right? She's like, yo, I'm sitting in the back of the church with all of them. And she's like, Al Sharpton is in the front just shouting out Tiffany Haddish and Kevin Hart and, Ludacris and T.I. and like, she's like, yo, this is not about Floyd at all.
Wow.
And then just seeing everybody jump on the bandwagon of like, we stand with so-and-so. And like, I live in this community. So I'm saying like, it was held at this Bible college. That's like a prominent Bible college. I just took this young black brother on tour just recently who went to that school. He was like one of the only black students, right? And he went to the school, and they, at the school when he was there, all the different like classes put on these little plays, and one of them, sure enough, was blackface. Like these white kids in blackface doing a play. So he was like,
In what city? In what city?
In Minneapolis. And so he was like, this is like 3 years ago. So he was like, okay. He was like, I'm gonna deal with this on Monday when I go back to school. You know what I mean? But he puts up a Facebook post. Crazy to see somebody in 2017 or whatever it was, still doing blackface. He wakes up and there's like 400 comments. Why are you doing all this stuff?
Hey, isn't it?
Like they wrote against him. They were like, you're playing the race card, race bait, all this stuff. And so to see that, and then at that event, the dean of students stood up and was like, we're announcing the George Floyd Memorial Scholarship for Young Black Leaders, and everybody's clapping. And it's like, they railroaded him. You know what I mean?
Wow.
I'm seeing the newspaper running stuff. There's this newspaper called the City Pages. And I, like, as an artist in this city, I was like, man, I'm not doing anything else with them. There was a black kid a few years ago, caught a stray bullet through his grandmother's door and got shot and killed. His name was Nizel. This young white reporter thought he was funny and was like, his name was Nizel, right? This reporter thought his name was Nizzle, the slang word for the N-word.
Right.
And wrote that in the story. And as a joke, maybe his dad named him after Snoop Dogg's favorite N-word thing. So this like group of black moms went up there to talk to them. And I'm like, yo, I've been on the cover of this newspaper 4 times.
Right.
I know the people in there. And so one of my homegirls calls and she's like, hey, these black moms are about to go ride on the City Pages. I'm like, okay, I'll go over there because I know those people and I can make sure that they actually get heard. I can make sure that like, hey, you have to talk to these people. Went over there, did my best. They railroaded all of us, you know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Just avoid. And now suddenly I'm just seeing all of these people and institutions and like that they're all on the bandwagon now without much self-reflection.
Hey, in a similar but unrelated thing, one of the things that, I think what you're talking about is this ripple effect of what appears to be false atonement. It's the only way I can really interpret it, is that like in the chess world, I can tell you so many chess institutions and publications that are like, Black Lives Matter to us and blah, blah. Will they respond to my email? RZA should be on the cover. I should do that interview. No other rapper has championed chess and music in the history of Earth like RZA. Let's do a cover story. No response.
Well, RZA and you. I mean, that should be you. Honestly,
here's me and I think both of us, because we kind of Voltroned it. You know what I mean? We were on the same vibe, but he had all the music that was already out there that enabled people to even hear what I was talking about. Yeah. But it's like there are a lot of white institutions There are a lot of white entertainment companies. And they're all saying that they understand, but structurally, they remain the same. And
Man,
this
the
is what's
only
frustrating
critique that
for me about the future of America, man.
Yeah. It's like, where's the reflection on self? Like where's the part where, I'm saying, so I'm an albino. People have always been confused about my race. My parents are white. Right. I think my mother's adopted. My parents are white. When I was raised in a Black community from the time I was a little kid. Mm-hmm. Both my parents, they're like, this is my reality.
Right. When
I started rapping, I didn't know that there was this like underground scene emerging with mostly white artists and mostly white fans. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, it's the scene of like, the Living Legends didn't start like that, but then once that scene developed, then they became some of the big players. Same thing with Right There, same things with Def Jux, same thing with, other crews and
other, yeah.
So when I ended up in that, I'm like, okay, I got, I grew up like white people didn't have much need for me growing up. And then I started rapping, and now there's this whole thing, and like now they're like, okay, you're our guy.
Right.
So at first I didn't know how to feel about that. And one of my organizer buddies was like, this is like a superhero story where you're rejected and then you go learn all the things and then you can come back and tell the truth. So along with making great music and just doing what I want to do, I've always seen it as part of my job to have some real talk with my white fan base. And a large percentage is white, about race and about all of this stuff.
That's huge, man. That's a hell of a step, because a lot of people would be afraid to. A lot of people, I mean, you've done it virtually immaculately, man. Like, I mean, I know that you move with intention and wisdom, and you share friendships with a lot of wise people. And I mean, obviously you yourself are wise, to be honest. Like, there's wisdom in your songs. There's wisdom in the way that the beats are. There's wisdom in the way that you do your shows. So I'm not shocked by it. I'm grateful for it. You know what I mean?
Well, what's the trip is that, so I'm like, okay, in this moment, what I'm realizing is like, yo, and not even realizing, but I just live knowing this. And like, yeah, and I've made sacrifices to say the things that I need to say, because I wouldn't be here. Like, I'm not here because I listened to hip hop music on TV and then learned. Like, I was actually raised and loved and cared for and nurtured and taught by the Black community. Like, I wouldn't be me without it. Not even like on the mic, and not even in the masjid or the mosque. But
I know what you mean.
The person, I am who I am. Dr. West says, I am who I am because somebody loved me. And I am who I am. I learned the world and how to live in it and how to be in it from Black wisdom and culture and from people and like families and whatever.
Right.
So what I know, and I've made sacrifices, like, that newspaper that I went up there and helped those people, like we're going to ride on you.
Right.
They don't mess with me anymore.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
You won't be on the cover next year.
Station,
right.
And I got on, late night TV. I did the rounds of late night TV one time, and I got on there and did all my protest, Uncle Sam, goddamn, and all this stuff. And it's just like, they're probably not going to invite you back. I have a Homeland Security file. The FBI came to my house on my birthday, like, because of music. That's deep. Nothing that I've done. So really, like, so it's like, okay, the conversation. Anything that I can point to and say, like, I've done this and I've said that and I've done, nothing that I've done has freed Black people. So what accomplishments are we really trying to count at this point? That's how I feel. Like, nothing that I've done has made the people who raised me free. It might have made them happy. It might have made them, but nothing has actually, none of that stopped George Floyd from getting killed. None of it stopped Philando Castile from getting killed, Breonna Taylor from getting killed. None of it stops my son from the way that my son is treated. Like, you look at my son, he's in the world as a Black man. Right. My daughters are Black, are like, they're still young, but like,
but they're going to be Black women.
Yeah, man. I mean, my daughters, it's funny because my wife is part Puerto Rican. So my daughters kind of look like Quincy Jones' daughter.
Oh yeah, Rashida.
Jones. Yeah. They're, you know what I'm saying? But my son is like very clearly a black man. Like none of that is done. So I'm looking at I'm looking at like you say, these chess organizations or the all of these people like We Stand With Black Lives and da da da. It's like, yo, I'll feel like there's progress when I see some self-reflection. Like when I see some like, hey, these are the ways that now that we're looking at this and now that we feel this pressure, also is outside pressure. Like even if it was agent provocateurs that burned the buildings, and I think it very likely was.
Yeah.
The burning buildings is what made people be like, yo, that's what made the power structure and those not in the community. That's the part that they're responding to, like, oh shit, I might not be safe.
Yo, when I saw the police department in whole fire, bro, I looked at that online and I was like, it's hella real. No matter what you thought it was, no matter what your position is, you could be Republican, revolutionary, hard left, somewhere in the middle. Bruh, look at the station right now. Whoosh. And I was like,
this is a thing.
I mean, that's historic. That's historic. The taking and the burning of that precinct is going to be a highlighted revolutionary footnote for 200 years at least. Okay. And it's deep because when I saw that building, you know me, I'm a reader of Machiavelli. I'm a reader of Sun Tzu. I'm a reader of Miyamoto Musashi and Clausewitz and Mao. And I was like, that is guerrilla warfare enacted by a people who feel abandoned. And I remember speaking to someone who was white and they were like, yo, why did they burn the police department? Like, I don't understand. And I was like, well, if you were a Jew in Nazi Germany, right?
Yeah.
And I said, and you saw that Gestapo headquarters burnt down, how sad would you feel? I was like, you think that the cop is the protector. He's your protector. He's not my protector. So when I see that burn, I'm like, karma, homie. You know what I mean? And I just can keep it moving.
Man, so it's become, so like my first love is rapping, or like my first like skill is rapping, and the second one is talking to white people about reality of like that's become my second skill. You know what I'm saying? I think the only way for most white people to understand what racism really is and white supremacy really is the closest that I think most white folks can come to it is terrorism. Like if you look at like, so like they see terrorist acts like, you know, the Twin Towers falling. Again, who knows why? But in the psyche, who knows what really happened? The official story is almost certainly not true.
Yeah, we're pretty sure that's not the real.
In the white American psyche, it's like, yo, 3,000 people in those buildings got killed. Not for who they are, what they did, what they believed in, who they voted for, who they donated to, what they volunteered, or even where, you know, just for the fact that they were Americans in America, they got killed for no other reason than just their identity.
Right.
And you look at what was the response of the power structure that they killed over 1 million people over the last 20 years in the Middle East.
Consistently, without reservation.
Yeah, like literally 1 million people. So that's basically like what we're talking about, just the police part of white supremacy, just the police part. We're not talking about the educational system, the beauty standards, the knowing your name, knowing who your people are. And especially once you start learning, like I've been spending more and more time in West Africa, you start learning like who the Mandinka are, who the Fulani are, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like realizing what was lost. You know what I'm saying? From what people were disconnected from. Yeah. Just the police part alone is like, yeah, you can be killed just for being you. It's the only way for people, for white people or people who aren't black, I think, to really understand what that means. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, how many people have been killed? How many police officers have been killed? It's not none. But I mean, you know, since the Black Lives Matter time, dude, less than 10, dude. And here's the other part too, right? Like, to your point, and it's deep, right? You know,
what you said about, I made all this music, I did this, said that or whatever, but Black people still aren't free. I think that's something that a lot of artists like yourself struggle with. You know what I mean? I'm just talking about in my head right now, Immortal Technique, Chuck D, obviously, right? Lots of different. Yeah. You know what I mean? Shout out to all of them. You know what I'm saying?
Shout out Chuck D, just turned 60.
Man.
His birthday's the day after mine.
Bro, you know what's crazy? When I met Chuck, I think I was 19. I was 19, man. And he's been so cool to me ever since. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, man.
Chuck's one of the most down-to-earth, just normal, regular dudes. And
he's funny, bro.
He was like, hey, man, treat me regular and we're going to be fine. Don't treat me like Chuck D. Treat me like your big brother, Chuck.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, nah, he's great, man. And so I look at the body of all of your work, right? And then I hear you say what you say, and I go, man, but like me and my boy Scape Martinez is like one of the best graffiti writers of the Bay.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
yeah, Scape,
I don't
man.
think I've met him.
He's dope. He wrote several books.
Yeah.
He wrote several books about how to use color in art. It's unbelievable. And so
I don't know who Scape is.
We used to speak until 2, 3 in the morning, back in the day when, you just combing through what hip hop is and could be. And what we came to the conclusion at this point, which would have been 1993, was just that at best, hip hop would be the soundtrack to the revolution, but the revolution had to be its own thing. It had to do its own thing. It wouldn't necessarily come from the music, because what revolution needs, music can't provide. What revolution has to be its own thing. And what you have done, what PE has done, what Technique and others have done, will be the soundtrack to that. But it's too much of an ask to suggest that it would free someone. Because that freedom has to come from them. It has to come from their elders. It has to come from community organizing. And nobody's rap can do that part.
Well, I don't think anyone.
But I feel it, though. But I feel what you mean, though. And I could imagine
and
how
I'm
that
just saying,
resonates.
Like, it's a moment to be like, what I'm really responding to, though, brother, is like the feeling of people like patting themselves on the back and like releasing themselves from the tension of the situation.
Right.
It's like it's very difficult for us to watch that video of that devil leaning on George Floyd's neck. It's very difficult to watch that. With pride, though. He was pridefully where he was on George Floyd's neck, like with willful defiance, man. Yeah, hand in his pocket, looking directly at the camera phone, like, what? This is what we do. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just Wednesday. And that man has shot other people of color.
That's what they say.
On his job. And he knew George Floyd.
That's what's so deep. I know.
That's true. Yeah, no, there's an MC from the Twin Cities, super dope MC called Mujah Messiah. Shout out Mujah Messiah. He actually tweeted the day after it happened, what if I told you that cop and Floyd knew each other and they worked together and they both did security at a club, and Floyd was the kind of security guard that was trying to keep everybody safe, keep everything cool, de-escalate, and the cop was trying to turn up on everybody. Yeah, get fool snatched up, slap somebody up or whatever. But they butt heads over that. That Floyd was like, hey man, we're not here to make things worse, we're here to de-escalate, you know what I mean? Right. And so yeah, I mean, it's difficult to watch that. And the thing is that the thing about whiteness is that, like, whiteness is an idea, right? And the Muslims, most of the Muslims, especially those of us that come from Black Islam, we believe that whiteness as a concept, not a person of European descent, right? A person of European descent is a creature of God, right? That God, in infinite wisdom, created, knowing every single detail about this person, and also knowing all of the infinite details that could have been, and didn't choose those things, but chose exactly what would be. So the children of Europe are people who were willed into existence by an all-knowing creator. No doubt. Whiteness as an idea is from the devil. Like, no. Right. Like it's the archetype, like the devil is the archetype. You look in the Quran, Allah created the human being and ordered all of creation to bow to the human being, because the human being has the human condition of wrestling with the ability to defy everything it knows to be right.
Right.
The human being's got that ego that's like, no, I just desire things and I don't care if they're good or bad. I just want them. You know what I mean? And then but then the human being also has a spirit, also has a secret, and also has an intellect, and also has heart. At the center of it all has heart. So God says for everything in creation to bow to the first human beings, and everything in creation bows except for Iblis, the devil, who says, I'm made of fire, he's made of mud, I'm better than him. It's the beginning. It's the literally archetypical white supremacy, racism, and every type of chauvinism that there is. So, and every type of every type of dominator superiority complex comes from that. That's the archetype of it. And so, you know, it's like what part of what's so necessary about the idea of whiteness is no matter what, I'm good. I'm good. The answer, whatever the bottom line is, I'm a good person. I have high moral qualities and character.
I'm from a respectable past.
Right. So the whole we stand with so-and-so. Just I'm not feeling that. I'm
not feeling that.
You know, and I know a lot of white people who would be called white. Man, I might cry if I tell you this story, but there's a Muslim guy. His name's John. I'm not going to say his last name. I don't know if but there's a Muslim brother named John. He's from rural Minnesota. It's almost all white out there. He went to the army. He comes from a Catholic background, went into the army to defend the country. Like he comes from this conservative background. Yeah. In the army, he says, wait, aren't I supposed to be able to learn a language while I'm here? And they're like, yeah, if you want to do Spanish or something, it's going to take years. But if you want to do Arabic or Chinese, you can go right now.
Deep.
So he's like, cool, I'll do Arabic. Learns Arabic, reads the Quran, realizes this is what he's believed all his life, becomes a Muslim. Spends his days, he has an organization where he goes to rural Minnesota and Wisconsin and North and South Dakota as a white guy from their culture, teaching them the basics of Islam as a Muslim. Because he's like, if people know the basics of Islam, they won't fear it.
Right.
So he goes in churches and that's what he does. When this stuff was happening and white supremacists were in North Minneapolis, he went to the mosque in North Minneapolis as a military guy. And he was like, I'm going to defend the mosque. He went there with his rifle and he said, I'm standing outside. There was a bunch of black Muslim brothers there. And he was like, he stood on the roof of the mosque. And he said, if white supremacists come here, I'll be the one they see. He's like, if they shoot, I'm the one they're shooting at. And if shots need to be exchanged, I'm a professional. And so, and he didn't even announce this. This wasn't on his Facebook page.
This was just him living, bro.
We just heard about it. My wife is a black therapist, a black Muslim woman, wears a hijab, therapist. And she and a social worker. And
you got a good wife, man. You came up.
Oh yeah, amazing.
You came up.
So I can't remember how it happened, but he said, but what we mentioned to him, it was like a text chain somehow where we just had found out and I was just like, hey man, love you. And then he texted us, but texted my wife and was like, he was like, if you have anything you need to do, if you need to go out at any point and you just want an armed security person there, he was like, you don't even have to speak to me. Just let me know. I'll go with you, wherever you need to be, wherever you need to go. And legally, full license, everything. You know what I'm saying? So I know a lot of people, a alarmingly large number of people who would be called white, who are on that, who are like that.
Yeah. I know a great deal myself, to be honest. And I think one of the beauties of what's happened in these times is that, early on, especially when you started to see those ugly clashes in front of the White House. I mean, they were so jarring and they felt so I have goosebumps because it just reminds me of Selma and the bridge. And it becomes very traumatic. And so, you know, I remember, you know, my mom was like, yo, like, he's trying to start a race war. He's trying to start a race war. And I was like, you know what? He probably is. I said, but he's not going to do it. And I'll tell you why. I said, like, if this would have been the 60s, 70s, probably. I said, but since the 80s forward, there have been so many mixed race marriages, right? There's so many kids who are Black and Filipino, Black and white, Black and Latino, and these people got relatives. I said, ain't nobody gonna do no race war. You know what I'm saying? I know how the voting gonna play out. I said, but there's too many people since the 80s that have been mixing culturally, spiritually, you know what I'm saying, and racially. I just don't think that it's possible. But it is possible to like, Trump uses the polarity strategy from the 33 strategies of war every day. That's the thing. Boom. Polarity.
That's his greatest hit.
White,
Black, he's Christian, doing his greatest hit every day.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he's always on that polarizing thing. And if you've never read the 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene, then you should get it, because he's pulling, and his team is pulling from that book every day. But the first rule is polarity. And he always does it. But this is why unity is so important. This is why the Islamic concept of Tawheed, this is why, you know what I'm saying, like, I have this hashtag I always use called unity and diversity. Always. Because it always wins. You know what I'm saying? And so, as you were talking, I had this question for you. You are unique to me. As a person, as an artist, you're very unique, okay? My question to you is, I see how you feel as a white rapper who came from predominantly Black backgrounds, who was also Muslim, okay? To the average, I almost channeled EPMD, to the average MC. I'm known as a Terminator. You know what I'm saying? Right? So I was like, to the average MC. I was going to say, to the average MC, who is white, do you have any advice, guidance, theories, thoughts? If you're a white rapper right now and you're sitting in the middle of Vallejo, or you're sitting in the middle of Florida or Wisconsin, do you have any advice for them? Any advice? I'm not even talking about George Floyd advice. Any advice?
Well, I mean, the greatest advice would be, I mean, what I believe in what Malcolm said. You know, Malcolm spent his life in America and said, I don't think anything can reform these people. And then he traveled around the world, specifically in the Muslim world, and he said, you know, I met white people that would be called white here, but they weren't white. They had a different air. They had different. He was like, they just were different. There's something about them. They saw themselves as human, and everybody sees themselves as human. This is not to discredit anybody, but you know, Malcolm really highlighted that, like, if people in America who have understood themselves for 400 years to be white, the thing about whiteness is that it's a vacuum. It's a vacuum of, there's not much the only real meaning that it has. I have a song called Before They Called You White that's on my project from 2017. And it basically says that, like, you know, before people came to the New World, they were German and Irish and Dutch, Greek. They were from the UK. They were Swiss. You know, and they had culture. Something. They had music. They had mores and folkways and families and history and language. And their music was dope. And their food was dope. And they were cultural human beings that had a relationship with the earth. They had a relationship with community. They had, they had technologies and ways of living, and like it was an understanding of what it meant. So like being Celtic means something. Being from a certain family means something. All white means is that you're better than other people in the hierarchy of the power structure. Yeah. And so what's happening with white people now is that for so long, white people were just kind of white by default. They didn't really have to wrestle with, what does this mean?
Right.
And then in this moment is like, wait, what does it mean? And so I really think it's 50-50. Half of white people support Trump to this day.
Yeah.
And half don't. In the Bay, you don't get a lot of those white people. There's not going to be a lot of those white people in the Bay.
Well, it's a trip.
You're gonna have to drive a while.
I think what it is I think, like, for instance, so I stay in the peninsula, right? Like not far from SFO, the airport, right? So when you land at SFO, that's like 5 minutes from my house. Okay. So that area is fairly mixed. It's mainly going to be Latino, white, Indian, some Asians, not very many blacks, not very many blacks, but like, I'll just say some cities that you probably like zoomed through, but really maybe didn't kick it in, right? So I
play a lot of cities.
If you come through like in the Bay, right? San Bruno, San Jose, Burlingame, Los Altos, right? Los Altos Hills, you know, they're puffing Cubans, rolled by Cubans in a garage who roll them, right? And they're voting for Trump. For sure. But when you walk through the, you know, when you're on Telegraph, when you're up there in Berkeley, you know what I'm saying? When you're over there by Zaytuna, right? And you'll see somebody and you'll wave and they'll wave, but they're still voting for Trump. They'll be very polite, but they're still going to vote for Trump. Now you do get, like, for instance, when the Black Bloc says it's going to show up, and then like the Proud Boys or some of these, you know what I mean? Some of these rowdy, you know, new era skinhead types want to show up, then they're going to get thugged on. For sure. And so I think on the surface, California looks more left than it is. Yeah. Because like it looks more left on the surface, but when it goes to state its case, it's always Republican. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, we just did a tour with me and Open Mike Eagle, and man, we rode. I'm not going to say the name of the town, but it was a small town in California, and we rolled into like because I don't want to diss them, right? But it was a redneck bar, right? And it was connected to a gun store, you know what I'm saying? And like they had like a charred American flag up as their backdrop, and my tour manager
was it Modesto?
Like, I'm not going to say. Modesto. But they called me and they were like, my tour manager who's white. Oh, and then his wife who's Colombian is selling merch. Right. You know what I'm saying? The whole rest of our crew are black and POC. Right. So he calls and he's like, hey, he's like, nobody in the crew is saying that they won't do this. But he was like, I don't feel like our crew is safe here. And he's like, and if you get up and start doing Uncle Sam Goddamn Morning in America before they called you white, Dear Black Son, you get up and start doing this stuff. He's like, I don't know. It's going to be a thing. Right. Yeah. And so, you know, we've come across that. My thing is though that like, so white people are like at a fork in the road where some of them are doubling down on the idea of being white and some of them are really looking at it in a completely unique way. And in terms of the culture thing, one of the things about Islam is that, you know, we have living links and chains of narration. So, for example,
and that is a big deal. This is a big deal. Yeah, Americans.
So like I make Moroccan tea. I make like authentic mint Moroccan tea. In order for me to, I can make it in my house if I want to. In order for me to do that, I spent off and on 4 years, in the home of a Moroccan family who are descendants of the Moroccan royal family. They're descendants of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with their children, with a 12-year-old Moroccan boy teaching me how to make the tea.
How beautiful is that?
And I would make it and he would be like, he would laugh. And then like, I'm saying years.
He was like, no, man, not yet.
And then finally I made the tea in a way that was like, that they were like, yeah, you're making the tea.
There it is.
You know what I mean? So it's very different than just going on. Now, somebody could go on YouTube and get a recipe. Right. And, you know, but now every North Africa, every Algerian, Tunisian, Moroccan person that I come across, if I'm making my tea, they're like, yo.
They know that you know.
Yes. Because there's things that I just know about because I made this tea in Moroccan people's homes with them teaching me and like training me, not only what the ingredients are and like measuring. You don't measure. The first way he told me is, okay, so the first thing is you get enough tea leaves in your hand and you pour it down. Like, what's enough? Like, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Talking about,
right.
Is this like a cup and a half? Is this 43 ounces? Because like I'm also big on making coffee, so I know that like 42 ounces of ground coffee makes 700 of you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm,
So I'm like, what
you know how the
math like what's work? And he was like, no, you just get enough in your hand. So how long does it take me to learn what enough is of Chinese gunpowder green tea leaves in my hand? You know what I'm saying?
That's so
and then knowing exactly how hot to make the fire. Like if the fire goes over a certain point, you're gonna spoil the tea leaf.
Right, it scalds.
Yeah, and so like you do not pour boiling water on real tea leaves. You know what I'm saying?
That's true facts. And what you probably don't know is we cover tea on my podcast, man. You just walk straight into it. Bro, you know what I'm saying? On my we talk about tea all the time. I got tea recipes, babe. We be dropping them out here. So this is great. This whole
real like Japanese fantastic. Tea leaves, like you wouldn't want to do over like 140 degrees.
Yep.
And boiling is going to be 211 degrees depending on where you're at in altitude. Yeah. Different altitudes are a little different. But, 211 Fahrenheit degrees is probably going to be boiling. You don't want to put a green tea leaf in water that's hotter than 140, 160 tops.
No.
And but they're not setting an electric kettle to know that. You have to set your fire. And they actually use coals. They use like a burning coal, like what you would put oud or incense on.
Right.
And they're they have like a holder that holds that metal teapot. I have a real one from Morocco in the other room here. But then like you hold and you put a coal underneath it. And they, and then how much sugar and how to make sure the sugar is crystallizing properly. I say that to say, if you're going to make rap music, there's a big difference between, so like in that equation, it would be like you go to a restaurant, order Moroccan tea at a Moroccan restaurant, and you're like, this is great. Going on YouTube and learning how to do it is like, you'll fool somebody that doesn't know the difference. If you serve that to your suburban homie, he'll be like, wow.
Be like, yo, this is...
Yeah. You will fool that person.
Where'd you get this?
But no Moroccan person is ever going to think that this is Moroccan tea. So if you learn hip hop from watching videos on YouTube and streaming music, or even for the people that grew up watching it on MTV Raps or something, you will make rap music that will, for people that don't know the difference, that'll be fine.
Yeah, and they'll think that it's dope, and you'll think that it's dope, and none of you will be clear on.
And maybe that's fine. Like, whatever. It just is what it is. You know what I'm saying? But when you go to Morocco, or when you're with some Moroccan people, you're gonna know
that actually know. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
you're gonna want them to feel respected when you show up in the building, right? Like, hey, he took the time to learn this. Like I noticed, like I used to speak Japanese. I lost a lot of it, but when I spoke Japanese, the eyes of a Japanese person, like, yo, he took the time to, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's dope, right?
There's a brother on Facebook that speaks, I can't remember if it's, he speaks maybe Mandarin. And he's on Facebook. He just walks up to Chinese people and just starts speaking Mandarin.
My uncle used to teach Mandarin.
Yo, Donnell Rollins, Ashley Larry, the comedian.
Yeah.
Speaks fluent Korean.
Shut your mouth.
It's such a trip. Like 1 minute it'll be like, yeah, what up, son? I'm rich, man. And then perfect Korean. He was in the military and he was in Korea for years.
That's crazy, bro. I love that. Yeah. Now, because you just mentioned him, I just got a flash of Dave Chappelle. Now you just performed a few weeks ago, right? Can you tell me about what that was like and what the event was for and how did you get cool with Chappelle? Like, how did you guys even become cool?
So what Chappelle is doing now is really beautiful, man. I have this theory also talking about that chains of transmission.
Mm-hmm.
Like we believe as Muslims, we believe in chains of transmission.
Yes.
That like, so just like, so that tea, I didn't learn, like the tea goes from the heart to the heart.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like the way that I make the tea is going to be shaped by the person that taught me to make the tea. And whatever their intention was will be part of mine. I also believe that in terms of like the way that we operate is handed to us. It's a spiritual chain. It's a spiritual passing that we get. So
martial arts is the same, bro.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's the same as martial arts. Like, yeah, you can go learn from some dude named Chad in a mini mall
exactly.
and get a freaking pink belt. You know what I'm saying? And like, okay.
But Miyagi-Do's gonna be a little different, bro.
Not gonna be the same.
You know what I'm saying? Miyagi-Do's gonna bring a little something extra.
And not saying there's not a guy named Chad that didn't really learn. Like there's
can't
probably
hurt
a lot
you.
of Chads that, you know what I'm saying, they really have that chain. So like for me, when I was 13, KRS-One brought me on stage, and you know, and standing on stage with KRS-One, I was like, he was giving a lecture, and I was like, oh, and his birthday's the day after me and Chuck, and I was like, standing up there, I was like, I looked at KRS and I was like, oh, that's what I am. At 13, I knew it. When Chappelle was a little kid, he met Muhammad Ali. There's a photo of it. And Chappelle said the moment he knew he met Muhammad Ali, he's like, I'm going to be famous like this, and I'm going to be the same way. So what Chappelle is doing right now is that he lives in this little town. Mm-hmm. See, Kweli talks about this stuff because he's closer friends with him. I'm not tight with Dave like that.
Right.
Like we love each other, but Kweli, like, they've been dear family friends for 25 years. Right. So if you follow Kweli, he tells a lot of more of this than it's not mine to tell.
Right. No, I hear you.
But Dave lives in a little town in Ohio, and he's the unofficial mayor of the town. He's keeping this town alive. It's a lot like Berkeley. It's almost like a Midwestern Berkeley, to be honest. Okay. It's fresh. Like this hippie town, funky, like little coffee shops, little flower shops, like, and it's just like everybody there knows Dave and his family, his wife, his kids. And Dave lives a very modest lifestyle for a person who's as famous and renowned and profitable as he is.
Right. Because he could be in the Hollywood Hills, puffing Cubans made by Cubans in the garage and, you know, pulling out in the new Lambo, and he's not doing any of that.
None of that. So Dave's got 10 motorcycles because he likes to ride motorcycles with his friends. And it'll be like, you know, Common, Jon Stewart, random people from the town that like him and his wife are just, that's their homies, that's their neighbors. And man, so, you know, we went out, like, he was like, hey, Ali, we're going to go out riding motorcycles. And he knows I'm blind, you know what I'm saying? And he's like, you know, I don't want you to miss out. So, so he had one of the homies drive me in a pickup truck so that I didn't miss out. So you could
be a part of the vibe, right?
Yeah, like we're riding. You know what I'm saying? I don't want you to like stay home. He's like, I'm not going to ask you to ride on the back of somebody's motorcycle. He's like, you're too big for that. You're too big. Like I'm, you know, a big guy. He's like, we're not going to do that. So he had somebody drive me in a pickup truck. So we're driving. Awesome. So it's Dave, and then like he's in the front, and then it's a line of like 8 people on motorcycles, and then me in a pickup being driven, right? And suddenly Dave turns around. He in the middle of this, like it's this like long 2-lane highway kind of thing. Suddenly Dave hits a sharp U-turn, and everybody else does too. This whole caravan hits this U-turn, and Dave drives up on somebody's, like it's all these farmhouses. Right. Dave just saw out of the corner of his eye a bunch of smoke coming from one of these houses. You know what I'm saying? And so he wanted to make sure it's okay. He's like, I want to make sure my neighbor's okay. And the guy turns out was like smoking meat or something like that. Like he had like this thing. Yeah. But Dave is like, and you just see, so I can't see far enough, but I can see Dave like really close to where I'm at. And he's like really checking it out. And he's like giving a thumbs up. He's like, are you good?
You good?
Okay?
Yeah.
You all right? You good? And he's like, cool. And he had a mask on. He pulls his mask down. He's like, you want to go riding? He's like, I got a pickup truck. I can send somebody back for another bike. You want to ride with us? And I'm thinking like, oh, they know each other.
Right.
And then the guy's like, you know, I'm Kevin, by the way. I'm like,
wow.
And just everybody knows that like Dave lives here. And what he's doing right now is he spent a lot of his money to get the best COVID testing machine available in that little town. So what happens is everyone in his circle, they call it summer camp. They call it like Chappelle summer camp.
Yeah.
Everyone that's in the summer camp crew, you get a swab up your nose every like 3 days. And then they give you a wristband with the date on it. That's like, this person's clean.
So everybody knows.
Then among those people, you're not wearing a mask. You're not social distancing. You're normal, right?
Wow.
So then he built a venue in a cornfield. So it can be a social distance outdoor venue. The tables are 15 feet apart. Like 2 people come together. You come with your significant other, your roommate, your homie, and you guys sit together with Chappelle masks. I got my Chappelle mask somewhere with like a red, black, and green mask.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And,
that's hard.
Yeah, and it's 200 people out there, but they're totally distanced.
Right.
And then he has his private jet goes back and forth to LA and New York so that he brings artists together. And then and they do shows like 4 nights a week that's free.
Unbelievable.
And so like every night you're seeing Dave Chappelle, Donnell Rollins, Michelle Wolf, and Mo Amer. Like that's the core crew, right?
Michelle Wolf is hilarious.
Yo, she's
one of the, I feel as much as she's killing it, she's still underrated. I feel like she's still underrated.
And here's the ill thing about Michelle Wolf, right? Michelle Wolf is dope. I love her. She's my sister. Like, she's an amazing comedian.
Raw.
So she has a lot of success. She writes for a lot of comedians. I don't think she says them all publicly. She writes
be ghostwriting for a lot of these fools.
Well, it's like, you know, they have writing teams.
Yeah, that's true.
But she also has had her own successful specials. She's a headliner on her own.
Yeah.
She's like, yo, I got a lot of quick success because I'm a white lady. She's like, but I want to be a killer on the mic. So she's spending the whole summer out there opening for Donnell and Dave.
Wow, just trying to like sharpen her game.
Yes. It's like, yo, so I like, you know, when I started in this, you know, going out with Atmosphere and stuff, those crowds were like, they loved me immediately. But then I went on tour with Brand New being Rakim, Ghostface Killer, MF Doom, opening for them just every night with like Rakim fans looking at me like, all right, Kentucky Fried Chicken, man, what's up?
Yeah, what you got?
Nah. They're looking at me like, nope. And I had to get on the mic like,
and
you know what I mean?
And so Merc versus, like, they understood.
Like, she's out here like, I don't care if I have success. I'm trying to be a killer. Like, I'm trying to be dope. And so every day she's out there and she's doing great, but she's on some like, I'm trying to have Donnell Rollins and Dave Chappelle be like, yo, you murdered it. Wow. You know what I'm saying? So then Dave's plane is going back and forth, and Jon Stewart, John Mayer, Chris Rock. Like when I was there, Banner came up, David Banner came up.
Crazy.
Kweli basically is living there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying, and it's just like every night, like, man, Dave would just be like, I'd be sitting backstage enjoying the show, and he'd be like, you guys want to see a white Muslim albino freestyle off the head for a half hour and never miss a beat? Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for Brother Ali. And I'm sitting back there like, yo, I didn't even know I was performing. You know what I'm saying? And I go out there and the DJ is just like, I'm just like, hey, man, play Nas beats, I guess.
Yeah, you know I will go. You know what I'm saying?
So Dave's thing, and I'm saying he's spending a lot of money doing that.
Right.
But his thing is like, what we have to offer is that artists need to be with other artists, period. That's who we are. We have to be with other artists. And he's like, what we offer the world is a reminder of their humanity. He's like, that's what art is. Art reminds people of their humanity, whatever form it's in.
Bro,
so he's like, with the rest of the world, it's all closed down. He's like, that's why this is happening. people don't get to have experiences together. They can't go to the mosque, they can't go to church, they can't be with their friends, and they can't go to concerts and comedy shows and art galleries. He's like, we're here to remind ourselves and the world that we're human first.
Bro.
You know what I'm saying? And
that
like,
is all what I've been on a quiet, like he just spoke, like James Baldwin could say things that I thought, but couldn't grasp and verbalize. Like that's why his book, No Name in the Street, really impacted me. And I think that's why Chappelle is so impactful, because he's able to take these fragmented crystallizations of your thoughts and do that. And you're right, man. Like that's the move, man.
And the other thing that makes him Muhammad Ali to me, because that's what I always tell him. I'm like, you're Muhammad Ali. So I took the name Ali because it's Muhammad Ali's name. Word. When I became Muslim, that was the name that I accepted.
Word.
And I'm like, you are Muhammad Ali. The other thing about him is that he is willing to take on the untouchable subjects of the time.
And like, only the courageous and the wise can do that effectively.
So, like, it's like I know, you know, being in a movement, it's like we're close with the LGBT community, got a lot of love and respect for them, always keeping track of their humanity, always, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But, or I would say and, not even but. So it's like whether or not you agree with Dave's analysis, and my view of his perspective on that conversation is, hey, if this is going to be the new civil rights issue, let's contextualize it from coming up on a 50-year-old black man's perspective on, like, let's remember what. So when he says, like, you know, why was it easier for Bruce Jenner to change his gender than it was for Cassius Clay to change his name? Let's just contextualize this. You know what I mean?
That's so deep, man.
Even if you disagree, even if you're like, man, Dave Chappelle's punching down and so and so, the reality is that there's nobody else. That this is like a messy conversation. And the fact that Chappelle, as somebody who clearly is a loving person who cares about people, is like, he's willing to be the lightning rod to even have a conversation like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a service. He's not doing that to get richer. He's not doing that because he hates anybody. He's doing that because he's like, let's see if I can crack a conversation open. You know what I mean? That and he was like, you know, and he was like, I respect transgenders way more than I respect Rachel Dolezal.
Right. Yeah, he was funny, like, man. Know,
just to have that, even if you think he's completely wrong, even if he is wrong.
Yeah.
The spirit from which he's having that conversation, it's not different from Muhammad Ali. Remember, like, Muhammad Ali was one of the most hated people in American life. When he said, no Viet Cong ever called me the N-word.
Hey, to your point, and I just want to say, listen to what he's saying right here, because there's a book called Muhammad Ali's Greatest Fight. And it's from the day he said he wouldn't be in the war until the day that he won in court, in the Supreme Court. And there's so many statistics. What did people say when he first said no? What did they say at the end? The end of the book, the shift is so massive. I just want to give, you know, I always want to tell people where they can read about that, not just, you know what I'm saying? I need you to know, people, Muhammad Ali's Greatest Fight is a book you should read. Continue.
And the same thing has happened over and over and over again. Dr. King's approval rating when he died was worse than George Bush when he left office.
He was up there like bin Laden in the American government perspective. The way they saw him as a problem for the American government. And
yeah, they said he was the most dangerous man in America.
Yeah,
and that wasn't even, that was the day after the I Have a Dream speech. That wasn't even. It won't go to like no war. That wasn't even the war protest.
You hadn't even got that far yet.
Yeah, that was just I have a dream. Little black boys and little black girls playing together.
Yeah, man.
Content and a character instead of color. That's that speech. And the same thing with Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was considered a world terrorist number one.
Yeah. One day I have to tell the whole story. But when Mandela did his last talk in North America, he did it in Oakland, bro. He did it at the Oakland Coliseum.
Oh, that's hard.
The Oakland Coliseum on a BART train that I couldn't breathe in because so many people, bro. I'll never forget, bro. Bro, one of the walls, bro. It said,
Is that where Wattstacks was? Where was Wattstacks? Oh no, I'm sorry, that was in SoCal. I'm tripping.
Yeah, that's SoCal. That's SoCal.
But no, there was some. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No, it's okay.
We'll come back to that.
Okay. So it said Oakland is Soweto. Somebody wrote that on the wall. So every train saw that. Oakland is Soweto. It had no style.
Crazy.
It was a tag. You understand?
Crazy.
So then you get to the Oakland Coliseum. Check this story. Get to the Oakland Coliseum. It's packed like a Raiders game, right? Mm-hmm. But we all here to see Mandela. So he comes out. He does his thing. And there's a transcript of his talk. And part of it dealt with Native American tribes trying to speak to Mandela and people who were in between, like kind of like making it, I guess, so they couldn't see each other. Okay. And so he spoke. He said, hey, I love you. We're good. You know what I'm saying? He goes through this whole talk, bro. Murks it. I'm over here in tears, stammering back to the BART train, bro. Mm-hmm. I come home. I'm like, yo, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. I was like, I wish, because my parents were there, but, you know, it was in a sea of people. My dad comes back. He's like, hey, you see KRS-One kill it after Mandela stopped? I said, what? He said, yeah. KRS-One, man, he murked it. I was like, no.
Yeah, no, they opened.
Yo, that was so crazy.
I didn't know it was after. I always thought it was before. But there's footage on YouTube. You can see it. It's Boogie Down Productions. I think Miss Melody, Heather B was out there.
Yeah, I mean, like when you talk about the aggressive ascension of an art form, right? So that in 75 and 83, they were saying it wasn't even music. By the time Mandela steps out free, it is, again, the soundtrack to the revolution, right?
And hip-hop had a big role in a lot of the divestment things that happened in
South Africa. Come on.
Yeah, college campuses. And like, man, hip-hop had a big role in the making of the movie Malcolm X. Hip-hop had a big role in, you know, safe sex movement. The whole thing with condoms around AIDS.
Oh, that was a huge thing. To your point about Malcolm X, I just had a crazy life, bro. When I saw Malcolm X, I saw it at the Grand Lake Theater in Oakland. To my right was oh my God, the guy that does Street Soldiers on KML Radio every day, every weekend, and to my left was Alice Walker, and in the front row was Rodney King. That's a true story. And if you know that movie, it opens with his beating and he was in the front row. Bro, I just started crying. As soon as the movie started, boop, I was like off top. It's crazy. You know, I feel as crazy as everything has been, as many painful chapters in my life that have ever existed. I am so grateful to be alive here now in the world. I am. I know COVID is real, all of that, but I'm grateful, man.
So you've had a lot of pain, and I think, and I haven't heard your pain from you. I've heard your stories from others, and I have tuned into the podcast.
Word.
You're a person that's known throughout your life as being always in a service role, and serving community specifically and youth. Yeah. You know what I mean? Through graffiti, through the like actual cultural arm of hip hop, whether it's Zulu or Rocksteady, and then also through chess. Yeah. And you've always been in a service role. What do you think it is specifically that some people channel that they say hurt people, right? But some hurt people serve people. So how is it that that you and others like you, of course, you're not the only one, right. But that you have taken all of that pain and channeled it into helping and healing and caring for and loving others on such a grand scale?
Dude, you know, that's an incredible question. I don't know. I think that part of it is a weird thing in me that is it's a resilience that I have yet to cultivate for myself. So what I'm saying is, if me and you were going down the street and someone punches me in the face, I may let them punch me and be like, I'm not that big
even
of a
though
deal.
you have the ability
Right. You know what I mean? I'd be like, oh, here goes the wallet, bro. I don't really care. You know what I'm saying? And that's jujitsu, iron hook scroll, whatever, right? However, if that same person asks for your wallet, they may not make it through the rest of the day if I'm present. And I'm still wrestling with what that is. But from a very young age, the same person who could harm me could not harm someone else. I wouldn't, if I was there, I wouldn't allow that. So a bully who I would be afraid of, if it was just me and him, I would try to take out if he was messing with my friend. I've always been that way. And I think that on some level, the best way that I can describe it is that when I was young, I had a crew and I had a decent amount of friends or whatever, but I didn't have anybody really pointing me in the right direction. Like, you know, my pops was there. I grew up with both parents. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I came to my pops and was like, hey, this is my thing, like, he would probably tell me what's up. But, you know, most teenagers don't do that. You know what I mean? They just don't. And man, so
do they ever not? Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They just don't do that. You know what I'm saying? So
it's around 13 to ask for advice.
You know what I'm saying?
From their actual biological parents.
Exactly. Hey, Pop, I was wondering. You know what I mean? So so what happened is I just tried to be the person I wished I knew in high school for other people. You know what I mean? Like if I had a big homie in high school, how would I want him? So that's who I try to be. You know what I mean? You know, I feel lucky to be here in this day. I feel lucky to know you, to have you on this show, to have experienced you in all the ways that I have experienced. Like, you know, before we, I think, technically met, I went to a show that you did in San Francisco with a friend of mine. And it was in San Francisco. He was Iranian. There was all kinds of like Islamic hip hop vibes popping. And like we went to the show and there were other Muslims we saw in the crowd and it was packed. I don't remember the venue though. Like I remember, like I can see it. 2 levels, wood floor, whatever.
Oh, was it at the Fillmore?
I don't think it was, but it might have been. I'll be honest. It might have been the Fillmore.
You know what? If it's around the time, like the time you're describing, like first hearing my music, like Only Life, that might have been at the Fillmore and the Reminders and Homeboy Sandman.
That's
it. I have a band?
That's the show. That's the show.
Yeah,
Bro, I remember that show so vividly and I was so happy just to see you doing it, man. And so happy to see the crowd and the vibe. And like I bumped into somebody I hadn't seen from an old job in like 20 years. It was like the best thing. You know what I mean? And so I want to make sure, I'm only saying it to say like, I know going back to some of what you touched on earlier, like that your music didn't make a system free, but you gave individuals freedom. I felt freedom from your verses. When I'm working out on the way to Talif, when I'm, you know what I'm saying? Like I run hills. I'm a jogger now because jiu-jitsu's kind of dead right now because, you know what I'm saying, because of COVID. So I'm jogging all the time. You don't know how far your lyrics have carried me. Just me, right? You might be asleep, bro. You could be on a plane in the middle of nowhere over an ocean. And
while you're running, I'm probably
meanwhile, I'm running up a hill. He wants me to get to the top and I won't quit. You know, so, you know, again, man, I'm going to end this show how I started it, man. And I'm going to say thank you for being the artist that you are. Thank you for taking the courageous stances that you've taken and the help that you've given. And thank you for I'm thanking you right now for not just for the things that I've seen. I'm thanking you for the things I'll never know. My man. I appreciate you, man.
My man. And I'll circle back to where that means a lot coming from you. You know, you're a person that does the work. You know what I mean? If what you're saying is that we do the soundtrack of the work, then you're the person. You're the work. You're doing the work, man. And that means a lot coming from you. And I really appreciate you and respect you. And I love you. I hope we get to hang out. I hope we get to hang out in the physical sometimes.
Yeah, man. Hopefully, man. Hopefully. So, man, thank you so much. Yeah, exactly. It looks like we're in the same room.
Yeah.
You know?
Red room.
That's right. So, yo, man, I just want to, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, where do they do it?
Most of the social media is Brother Ali. It looks like Brother, Brother Ali.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but on Instagram, that was taken. So it's Brother Ali is Blind on Instagram.
Word.
And that's the one that I'm on the most.
Word. Okay. Yo, man, really appreciate you. Really love the last album, the artwork, the verses, the structure of it. You know, I appreciate that you don't stop. I know someday you need to, and you will, because we're all human beings, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I appreciate
What's that when we die?
Yeah, exactly. Word.
I don't know how to do anything else. So this is it.
Word, man. Well, yo, man. Before I go, give me a book that that either A, you think people should read right now, or B, just impacted you. You know what I mean?
Wow. Well, since we're on the you mentioned James Baldwin.
Yeah.
When white brothers and sisters ask me what should I read, I always say The Fire Next Time. That's a really good one. I really love Miles Davis' autobiography too.
You know, I never read that, man. I need to.
Oh, so I do a lot of audiobooks. Like, I'm partially blind, so it takes a long time for me to read a physical book. But I do a lot of audiobooks. And then Kindle now, you can get books on Kindle and like the voice,
right.
Read it. But there's so like some audiobooks now, they have straight actors perform them.
Right. I have one like that.
Guy, his name is Marcus Graham. I think his name's Marcus Graham. Mm-hmm. He's an actor. He narrates some of the Baldwin books, but he does Miles Davis autobiography as Miles. So he does like a Miles character when he's reading the book. It's so fire, man. It's really, you can't really listen to it with your kids because it's Miles Davis, but
but it's dope though. Okay.
Man. I mean, he goes into everything: his relationships, his views on music, other musicians, fashion, his life story, he talks about, stuff about culture and race and music and all of it. It's just like, it's like hanging out with Miles Davis.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, I'm gonna go shop it and cop it. You know what I'm saying? So, man, have a blessed one. Thank you for everything, and appreciate you making time to be on Bishop Chronicles in these times. Thank you for your wisdom and your music, and inshallah, once the COVID kind of wherever it goes, we will kick it proper.
All
right, man. Walaikum salam.